Hi everyone, and welcome to our channel Rack to Run, where we discuss with industry leaders issues around AI infrastructure and data centers. Joining us today is Alex Cordovil, Research Director at Dell'Oro. So Alex, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Juan Pedro.
So Alex, the data center physical infrastructure market grew 17% in the first quarter of the year, according to Dell'Oro. What's driving this growth? And do you think that this expansion in the market can continue into 2026?
Very good questions. As we've seen in Q1 2025, a 17% year-on-year growth, which is a very healthy figure for the market, and we expect this to continue in the next few quarters, in the next few years. First, of course, we see the momentum of a very long-term secular trend of digitization of our lives is continuing, and we don't see that stopping anytime soon. So consumers of media are shifting from cable and open TV to streaming services. Shoppers are moving from brick and mortar shops to more of e-commerce platforms.
Yeah.
And people are visiting less of their banking branches as they move to more apps on their phones. All these services, they might be in this ethereal cloud that we don't often think what is supporting them, but in their core, they're being supported by data center critical infrastructure. And all these services are not going to go anywhere soon. We expect them to continue. Of course, in the last few years, since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, AI has been added to this demand for data centers, and we're really seeing this a very fast, a very accelerated pace of this new AI super cycle. The technology has come to the top of agendas in many Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, and AI labs are investing massively in what can be called an AI arms race to continue advancing the technology, to continue trying to be the best out there. And of course, continue meeting the demand because these services are in very, very high demand. It's still at the end, very early days of the technology, and we're seeing new models being developed that require more and more compute. There is an expectation of this to continue. I don't think there's going to be continuing the same pace that we have observed in the past, but we're going to see an expansion of the AI stack with more smaller specialist models, with more agentic AI really coordinating the tasks of a mixture of experts, of models, to really deliver to help users find the questions and support the tasks that they need. So all in all, it is a very good moment for the industry, and we're not expecting the optimism to go down anytime soon.
Great. Alex, in a previous report, you have called AI a structural force in data centers. How is accelerating computing changing infrastructure design from your perspective?
It has been changing a lot. So if you think about a data center design over the last 15 to 20 years, we had this very standard or very well-established paradigms that designers, installers, operators were relying on them. And of course, they had been evolving, but they were on a small evolution, not as much as a revolution that we are seeing right now with accelerated computing. What we saw racks, what we used to call high density racks around 25, 30, sometimes very rarely 40 kilowatt per rack in terms of density. Now we're seeing racks going to 200. We're seeing next generation of racks going to 600, and we're going to talk a bit more about that in our conversation. But this, of course, has really changed completely what what the industry was used to working on. And a lot of designers, a lot of vendors, a lot of engineers had to go back to the drawing board to understand how they're going to solve these new engineering challenges from scratch. And it has been really, really exciting and really fun moment in the industry, a lot of challenges, but we really saw a complete overhaul of data center design. I don't think we can put it anywhere more mildly than that. It's not an exaggeration that this has been completely changing how data centers have been designed and operated.
Yeah, Alex, Dell'Oro also reported that liquid cooling revenue more than doubled in the first quarter. What's holding back wider adoption of liquid cooling, and when do you think that this technology will become standard in the market?
Look, in the early days of the technology, there was a lot of reservation to adopt it, just because it's sheer novelty. As I mentioned, the industry was relying on very well-established paradigms and standards. And when something that shows up and is completely new, people are going to get their heads around and say, oh my God, how I'm going to tackle this new challenge.
Yeah.
So there was just a lack of knowledge on how to design a liquid cooling loop, how to properly integrate with your IT, how to install it, how to commission it, how to get ready and deliver it. And for the operator, how to maintain, how to operate, how to service it. Your IT engineers now are going to be looking at flows and pressures and new metrics. And again, new knowledge that most of the labor force has not been exposed to. The industry has come a long way and made a huge progress. Chip designers, IT OEMs, cooling equipment providers, partners from the engineering to the contracting side, all working together with data center operators, really to help educate the labor force that is already in shortage and it's very hard to find out there, and bridge the skill gap that we saw in the early years. So really huge kudos to everyone that has been involved, because there has been a lot of late night works to make sure that people could understand and how to adopt and how to really reap the benefits of this technology. I don't see the adoption being held back anymore. I think now we are in the pace, and liquid cooling is coming to where is needed, because honestly, I don't believe the liquid cooling will become the standard, not in
Okay.
the next 5 years, not in the next 10 years.
Okay.
When we talk about data centers, we often are lumping in the same category of data centers very different buildings. We can't, it's very hard to say data centers as this was a homogeneous operation that we could see and we could recognize one from the other. This is, I think for me, is a bit like calling motor vehicles, and in that same category, you have a tiny little Vespa and a
Mhm.
Formula One car.
Yeah.
Naturally, when we have a very broad spectrum of requirements, they will be met by very different engineering solutions. And I think that's what we're going to see more and more in the data center industry. We're going to have very compute intensive AI factories that are going to be designed very differently from a data hall that is used to store, I don't know, files that we have in our cloud file sharing systems, because that kind of workload is not going to go as to the same level of density of a big AI workloads. So liquid cooling is very well suited for one type of data center. It might not be very well suited for another one. And that's how we're going to see the industry evolve and adapt and pick and choose what technology it is best fit to meet the needs of a specific challenge.
That's interesting, Alex. You have just mentioned that rack power is nearing 600 kilowatts. What challenges does this create for operators, especially around energy and efficiency?
Yes, I think that's the next. I think the next big headline that we're going to see in the data center industry. If we look at the last 2, 3 years, liquid cooling has really grabbed a lot of the attention as it was just a brand new, a very novel technology. And when things are new, people get excited about it, and everybody
Yeah,
wants to talk about it. Uh, on the power side, there were not that many completely new technologies. Of course, there are very big challenges to meet the needs of AI workloads, but we had not seen just a step change, a complete overhaul of the technology foundation that AI workloads were requiring. As we go to these very high density racks now, we're starting to see that change coming to the power, to the electrical space. We're going to see more architectures that are going to be relying on very much higher voltages. If we go to very high power, we cannot operate at lower voltages unless we compromise on the amount of material, the amount of copper, meaning getting much more expensive because copper is expensive and it gets much heavier. So we're going
yeah,
to need more structural development to support that power delivery. So nobody wants any of these. And then, of course, lower voltages to deliver high power are going to require much higher currents, and higher currents mean also higher losses, lower efficiencies for our system. Uh, so what we're going to start moving towards is much higher voltages in the power distribution to the rack, not only up to your switch gear in the beginning of your data center or closer to the utility feeding line. We're going to see that higher voltage coming
yeah.
closer to the rack, either in an AC power, but also we're talking a lot about DC power distribution within the data center. And that again is going to bring a lot of different elements of complexity, not only for the design. We're going to be requiring slightly different types of equipment within the data center, or slightly different ranges of equipment that we're going to be feeding in. So we're going to be talking about either back of the rack bus bars, we're going to be talking about PSUs, BBUs within the rack, or in rack sidecars, rather than the traditional UPS and RAC PDU model that we see currently. And then, of course, we're going to bring considerable challenges for the operators themselves. Everybody that has electricity at their houses know that it can be dangerous, and as we increase voltages, it means it increases danger. So we're going to see much more challenges in terms of having, again, that labor force that is out there servicing our data centers on the day to day, to be able to be trained on how to handle much higher voltages, to be able to are to be equipped with either PPE that they might need, or different types of tools they're going to need to either just enter a data center space that's going to be having those cables or those bus bars in them. And again, I think that's going to be another moment of everybody coming together, a lot of training, a lot of education on the challenges and how to overcome these technologies. But because we know that they're going to be needed, and very similar to liquid cooling. In the beginning, when there was reservation, people didn't want liquid cooling. But when we say, look, these workloads, these racks, these GPUs, they can only be liquid cooled because there's no way around it. People won't say, "Oh, there's no way around it." So now I think it's the moment that I'm going to learn about this technology, and I'm going to jump into. Higher voltages are going to be on a very similar path, that people are going to reckon that, look, I need to face this, I need to learn it, and I need to be able to design, service, operate, maintain it. Otherwise, my data center is not going to be running, it's not going to be making any money for me.
Great. Alex, also according to Dell'Oro, North America grew 23% in the first quarter. From your perspective, why is this region leading in terms of expansion, and which other regions will grow faster next?
Uh, well, North America has definitely been leading on the technology side. All the
Yeah,
major AI labs are based in the US. And then, of course, it's their home turf, makes data center development close to them a much more natural movement. Of course, that is not only because it's their home turf, it's also because we still saw a lot of energy available in a lot of markets, especially tier two or secondary markets. And not talking about huge hubs like Northern Virginia. We're going to be talking about places that were not expected to have data centers or only 2, 3 years ago, and we saw a lot of data centers either in Wyoming or in Louisiana or in Tennessee. And that has really helped support the growth in North America. Uh, of course, now with the new administration, I think there's only being doubling down on the importance, on the strategic importance of AI, and really lifting permitting challenges or obstacles that data centers might usually face, and then, of course, invest in the grid or in novel solutions to meet the power needs. Either we can be talking about later down the road about SMRs, or early on right now about on-site generation with gas turbines.
yeah,
But there's really been a big support now, or an extra push from the government to continue on that trajectory. So we expect North America to continue growing at a very healthy pace.
yeah,
Uh, but we also expect other regions to start picking up. I think it's difficult to say if they're going to overcome or surpass North America, maybe in a few quarters in terms of year-in-year growth, also because they're growing from a much smaller base. It's much easier to grow at a fast pace when you're at that place. But we're going to start seeing Europe has definitely waking up for in terms of needs of sovereign AI. There is a big EU Commission fund for AI gigafactories that are coming. We're seeing governments shifting their tune and their in terms of support for data center build out. We're seeing the UK. The government has overruled the ban of data centers in a few local councils, or the permits that had been declined by a few local authorities that have been overruled by national governments. And I think Asia has been seeing really good growth. I think we had some really interesting markets from Malaysia, where of course China, now that they're catching up on the AI microprocessor chip fabrication and design. So they're betting a lot on Huawei to start delivering their next domestic AI chips. Once they start coming out of the factory, or once they start really being adopted and showing the value, because there's still a few generations behind the latest GPUs by NVIDIA, we expect the Chinese growth to really be unleashed again. And I know we're also going to continue seeing some spots, hot spots that are really working fairly well in the past few years, and will continue to grow. I think the Middle East is a really good example of a region that woke up to AI sovereignty very early in the road down the road. The UAE and Saudi now really pushing for very important investments in AI. Even in Europe, the Nordics have benefited a lot again from having readily available power, and especially green power, to meet the needs of to meet the demand of data centers. So we're going to see a few hotspots continue to grow, but we expect to see a bit more an equalization or distribution of growth across regions in opposition to a very stark leadership of the US or North America versus, let's say, the rest of the world.
great, great, Alex. Final question. Beyond hyperscalers, how important are neocloud players like Scaleware or Nebius for future demand in the market?
Look, they play a very important role in the ecosystem. We from NVIDIA's very own strategy to diversify its customer base because it does not want to rely on three or four names to take the lion's share of its GPU sales. I think in the last earnings calls, Jensen mentioned that three customers made more than 50% of their data center revenue. They don't want to be in that position because we know that Google has a very strong roadmap of TPUs and already really strong deployment of their own design TPUs out there. Amazon is following suit. Microsoft is a bit later down the game. Their latest GPU is not there yet, but we're going to see more and more competition on that front. And of course, the neoclouds play an important role to support the ecosystem to be not that concentrated. And of course, they are seeing a good amount of business from enterprise customers that don't want to go full on with a big AI deployment straight out the gate because they can be very expensive. And if they can rent GPUs as a service, or they can rent a few hours of GPUs to run some very intense compute workloads, it can be beneficial for them. So we expect neoclouds to continue growing. Of course, we expect to see either consolidation or a lot of losers in the market because has proliferated, has really multiplied quite quickly, and we expect to have a few winners that assert themselves and I won't say dominates the market, but really guides the market and lead the market as we see in other industries. Having said that, neoclouds, in most cases, they operate in co-location agreements and they are working with very traditional data center companies that are out there because they don't want to insource all the complexity of the facilities design and management of those data centers, and of course focus on their core business, which is selling GPUs or selling algorithms and improving or enriching their IT and AI stack to their enterprise end users. So we're expecting neoclouds to continue driving demand and continue growing at a very fast pace for the next few years.
That's really interesting, Alex. Thank you very much again for your time today.
Thank you, Juan Pedro. Thank you for joining in.
And thank you all for watching, and please stay tuned for more conversations on this critical space.